The first fortifications at Carnarvon were Roman. In fact, during the construction of the present castle, it is reported that the body of the Roman Emperor Magnus Maximus was uncovered. Magnus ruled the Western Roman Empire from 383 to 388. The Normans built a motte and bailey castle on this same site shortly after they invaded England in 1066. The Welsh had reclaimed it in 1115. After his successful campaign to subdue the Welsh in 1282, Edward I ordered the current castle to be constructed. Intermittent construction lasted until 1330, but the full castle was never completed. The Welsh sacked the town and castle in 1294. It was besieged in another Welsh uprising in the early 1400s. While the Tudors reigned in England, there was a relative period of peace since the Tudors were of Welsh ancestry. It was again besieged during the English Civil War. Carnarvon has always been a symbol of English dominance over the Welsh. In an effort to win over the Welsh, Edward I brought his queen to Carnarvon, where she gave birth to Edward II. A new title of Prince of Wales was given the heir apparent to the throne. Now it is a common practice that the eldest son of the monarch is proclaimed the Prince of Wales in a huge ceremony that takes place in this castle. The castle is built in a figure 8 form with an eastern and western ward. The eastern ward contained royal apartments, but much of it was never completed. The western ward contained kitchens, storerooms, and garrisons for the soldiers. The castle had two main entrances, one from the town and a second that bypassed the town. The town entrance is called the King's Gate. Had it ever been completed, an invader would have had to negotiate 2 drawbridges, 5 doors, 6 portcullises, and a severe right-angle turn, while drawing heavy fire from 2 watchtowers. The Queen's Gate bypassed the town, but would have required an invader to negotiate a steep uphill ramp that was also guarded by twin watchtowers. The castle has several towers along the outer walls, but the grandest of these was the Eagle Tower at the western corner of the structure. This tower was made of 3 individual turrets that offered a commanding view of the surrounding lands, but also of the interior of the castle. Within the Eagle Tower was a display of Welsh and English rulers. The Welsh princes were of particular interest to me, since several of them were ancestors I have been researching. This was an amazing castle to explore. One could easily spend the greater part of the day investigating the many passageways, rooms, and towers of this great castle. Leaving Carnarvon, we headed southeast to Llanberis. This small village sits between 2 lakes and is the home of the Snowdon Mountain Railway that will take you to the top of England's tallest peak. We stopped briefly by one of the lakes to take some pictures and noticed an old slate mine on the opposite side of one of the lakes. Continuing southeast, we drove through some beautiful mountain scenery until we passed over Penny Pass. This is one of the scenic drives through the Snowdonia National Park. Turning southwest, we headed to an even smaller village of Bedgulert. Descending from Penny Pass, you drive by 2 scenic lakes before arriving at the village. Bedgulert lies at the junction of the Colwyn and Glaslyn rivers. We stopped here hoping to find some Welsh love spoons that are made in this area of Wales, but we were unable to find a shop that sold them. From this small village, you can take the Welsh Highland Railroad back to Carnarvon. We continued on a southerly route down to the coast to see Crisiath Castle. This castle was built by Llewellyn the Great in 1230 and later renovated by Edward I. It has commanding views up and down the coast from its hilltop perch. The original castle had only one ward that was protected by twin D-shaped towers. Around 1270, Llewellyn ap Griffith added a second ward. That castle was further reinforced by the English after Edward I invaded Wales in 1282. It withstood a Welsh uprising in 1294, but was destroyed in the 1400 Welsh uprising to keep the English from using it. Due to the steep climb up to the castle, Vicky stayed with the car while I investigated the site. Much of the castle is in disrepair, but the views were fantastic. The climb to the castle was well worth it, due to a display in the visitor center that had a timeline history of several of my ancestors who were Welsh princes. After returning to the car, we had ice cream at Cadwallader's. Apparently this is a famous ice cream parlor that was recommended to us by the host at our B&B. We decided against a visit to Harlech Castle, which lies further down the coast, and headed back north into Snowdonia National Park to the village of Ypsidy Even. This small and isolated village was home to 4 generations of my ancestors, and was also the home to Abraham Lincoln's grandfather. We drove through several miles of deserted highland heather on a single-track road. We saw very few indications of human habitation in this area. We spotted a church and cemetery on the hill on the opposite side of town. We explored this area, but we found that the tombstones were from the 20th century. We headed back into the small village and met an elderly lady and asked for directions to an older church. Apparently not too many tourists come through this village, because she became quite excited when she learned that we were from the States. Following her directions, we found an older church dating from 1858, but we found no tombstones of any of my relatives who would have lived here between 1431 and 1668. The town name means the Hospice of St. John. It goes back to the year 1190, when knights returning from Jerusalem established a church and hospital in this location. As we were leaving, the elderly lady who had given us directions to the church comes walking in from town and gives us 2 postcards with pictures of the village. Heading back to our B&B, we drove through more of Snowdonia National Park, stopping in the quaint village of Betsy Coed. We purchased Welsh love spoons that we found at the visitor center and had a bite to eat before driving through some more beautiful countryside and returning to our B&B. This was our last day in Wales, and we regret having to leave it. We could spend more time exploring this country and would love to return someday.